Yeah. Thanks, Asha. Okay, well, yeah, let us get going. So it's Sharon, marvelous. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how you going?
Yeah, fabulous, fabulous. We're lovely to see you. I was just about to get started and kick off, and yeah, so I shall do that. So yeah, marvelous to welcome whoever we've got here at the moment. From I know Nashad and I, like this, three of us here from Melbourne. We've got Bed from Brisbane, Asha in Bangkok, and Sharon, you are actually down on living on the Mornington Peninsula?
Yeah, hiding out in the cafe while every other man and his dog is down here.
Oh yeah, the second day of lockdown, and people are going crazy.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so it's lovely to see you folks, and I just yeah, I wanted to say, get comfortable, and we'll just have a bit of a discussion and a bit of a dialogue on food product development, and if anything that comes up, questions, discussion points, anything, just shout out, and Nashad or I or
yes,
whoever Asha can respond. Yeah, but yeah, most of all, just get comfy and enjoy the next little while. So I'll share my. Hey, Nashad, I'm disabled from sharing.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. So I'll do that, and then we'll.
Is it possible, Philip, sorry, especially being Indigenous, that I do a little acknowledgement to country?
Oh, absolutely. That would be absolutely marvelous, Sharon.
Yeah. I would feel bad if I didn't.
Sharon. No, definitely. I think we need to start including.
Yeah, we do. We do. Actually.
Webinar. So yeah, we would probably start putting that from next one. That's for sure.
Lovely, thank you. I just keep it simple, but I would just like to acknowledge the lands that I'm coming to you from today. I'm on Wonurong country in the lands of the Kulin Nation people. I would like to pay my respect to their elders past, present, and all the little deadly emerging. I'd also like to pay my respects to any lands that you guys are coming from. Do you know the lands you're coming from today?
Yes.
Yeah, where are you guys coming from?
I'm from India, so.
No, I mean the lands that you're actually on today.
Oh, not really. No.
That's okay. That's all part of the learning journey. So if you're a certain way in Melbourne, you're on Bunurong country, or a good way to say the whole of that is the Kulin Nations.
Yes.
The other side of is Wiradjuri. So.
I think because I'm based in Southeast near Berwick, right? So so I think it's Wiradjuri, right? So
yeah.
And as I said, I'm in Montana South.
Yeah, I think Montana might be Wiradjuri, so I will find out.
Yeah,
but,
that will be.
It's always lovely to acknowledge. So, because if I went over to India, one of the things I would like to know is like what's going on in town and where I am and what I'm doing. So it's sort of just the same sort of process.
Oh, okay.
Trying the food. So tomorrow, you're coming down tomorrow too?
Yeah. By the I'm not sure, right? So
Lovely. I won't take any more of your time. Thank you both.
No, but that's great, Jane. Yeah, thank you so much for raising that, because we should be doing it. We need to be doing that, and we shall do it. So really appreciate it. And Brenda, how's it going? From Atlanta, Georgia, if I recall. Yeah, how's it going? Great to hear you from Eastern Time Zone in the US. Marvelous. Okay, now let me share my screen and. Okay, so there we go. So yes, once again, thank you all for joining us from the places near and far. it's marvelous to have you all here. And as I said, yeah, make yourself comfortable and sing out if you've got anything to ask or to comment on, to raise, and one of us will do so. First of all, sorry, I'm just trying to rearrange my screen again. I moved this thing, right, and it was right over what I was trying to read. Anyway, this is our mission of vision. Just first couple of slides are about introducing us and launching our logo, because today is the day that we're actually launching our new logo. But first of all, yeah, this is our mission and vision. So we really are all about guiding, caring, supporting, and mentoring the next generation of food entrepreneurs. And these are people that have marvelous vision themselves, marvelous ideas. You know, they have a ultimate goal of their own, you know, in food entrepreneurship, of you know, something near and dear to them, and you know, they want to make it successful, and that's what we're here for those home food entrepreneurs and small scale manufacturers, early stage startups, and those sorts of people, to really give support and guidance to them. So that's what we do. But our ultimate vision, if you want to put it that way, is once we do this enough, to actually enable a paradigm shift in food manufacturing, because up until now, you know, food manufacturing is, you know, largely multinational corporations and all that sort of thing. You know, if we go back like 100 years ago, for example, you know, there were so many little guys, little players in the market, and ultimately those have all been, you know, bought up or acquired by these big companies, so that each one of those little original manufacturers are brands within these big corporations. So we're trying to enable things to, you know, not necessarily go back to the way they were, but just, you know, have a paradigm shift to enable, you know, more accessibility and more inclusivity to more people, so that they can, these food entrepreneurs can actually follow their dream, and, you know, passionately follow their dream in food entrepreneurship, so that entry into the market, you know, isn't just for the people that have, you know, that are just for the, you know, these big corporations, because anybody, you know, can be a visionary in this game, and that's what we're here for, to ensure that, you know, everyone can follow through on that. Really, so yeah, that's what we're here for, because we've just seen, yeah, that so many people have marvelous ideas, and it's just a shame, you know, for those not to be followed through on, and things like that, you know, because of commercial constraints, or, you know, because it doesn't fit into, you know, a huge company's you know, R&D program or something like that. And yeah, just because of that, you know, the world misses out on somebody's, you know, marvelous creation, marvelous idea, that sort of thing. So so we just feel that's, you know, there can be a better way of doing it, really, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what we are, what we're striving for, what we do. And our logo. So here we are, launching our logo, the new logo. So what we have here is really what we're trying to represent here. You know, is a light bulb. So creativity, innovation, ideas, those sorts of things. And if you think about most logos, if not all, you know, major company logos, they're all just, you know, 1, 2, you know, probably no more than 3 colors. But we've really tried to go a multicolored here to represent, you know, so much diversity in terms of food products, different peoples, different countries, you know, different types of approaches, and therefore having that, again, representing that accessibility, that diversity, that inclusivity that we really are trying to bring together to enable, this paradigm shift to a more diverse food manufacturing industry. Really, that's what we're trying to do here. And of course, at the center of that is science, and that's what we've got represented by the electron paths image there. So that's how we're representing ourselves from today onwards, with basically science, food, innovation, creativity, and great and bright ideas that we're here to support and enable people to really realize those dreams and those great ideas that they have. Okay, so that's about us and about our logo and what we stand for, what we want to do, and how we want to contribute to people and food entrepreneurs and the food manufacturing industry, regardless of where you are in the world. That's what we want to do. So we have a global reach, global. Our clients up until now have been in many continents. Asia and Europe and North America and here in Oceania as well. So we haven't had any as yet in South America or Africa, but we're looking forward ultimately to having clients in those areas. But we're just we just love the diversity and the cultural aspect of that as well. But if we look at these nitty-gritty, down-to-earth details of the realistic aspects of food product development, and I'm assuming these are US figures because they're out of this Food Navigator USA magazine thing. We've got on average about 15,000 new food products launched every year, right? And on average, there's a long time that's spent in developing these. So it's got here 2 years, and it's not just a lot of time when people think about food product development, it's the so-called glamorous parts of what we do in the lab or the product development kitchen, but that's just a small part of it. And unless you pay good attention to sorry, I'm just sorry, I'm just making a note of something here that I just forgot. Unless you're paying attention to all of these different aspects of the food product development process, the failure rate can be really high. There are so many pitfalls, so many things that really need close attention to and a real good understanding of, so that you can ensure that you're in that 10%. Maximize your chances that you're in that 10%. So keep that in mind as we're going through, because that's really important. And if you keep that in mind, then you'll really keep feeling that, okay, I really need to do this, need to do that, need to keep on top of this, and really ensure that I'm on top of A, B, C, and D area, because to really ensure my success. So really, that leads us onto the next stage. Like, where are you? Where do you see yourself? Are you, you might have a signature dish, say for example, that it could be a family heirloom recipe that has been passed on down, generation after generation, which is just something that you treasure so much that you might bring to family gatherings and potluck dinners and those sorts of things. And people say, wow, what's in this dish? This is just amazing. This is just fabulous. It's so good that you should be sharing it with people. You should be commercializing it and really selling it. And that might be you, or you might, it could be Granny's fruitcake recipe that's just better than all other fruitcakes that you've ever tasted, and other people are saying that as well, and it could be the time that, yeah, you know, Granny's fruitcake recipe makes it big on the world stage of food manufacturing, and you know, just to be able to share that amazing love, and you know what you really feel about that dish with more people. Or yeah, you know, it could be just something that you've come up yourself, you know, your amazing own creation that, you know, maybe you've seen a gap in the market, or you know, you love salsa or cookies or plant-based milks or jams, and you think, hey, how come, you know, there isn't a food product like this? How come, you know, I can't get one, I can't buy one that's exactly like this? Or people are telling me, hey, you know, there's something missing in the market, and you think, yeah, there is. Maybe I can fill that gap with you know, my amazing creation. So then you think, yeah, well, you know, I've got a recipe, I've got you know, people saying that this food product is amazing, and potentially there could be people that want to actually buy it, but I've got this, you know, yeah, I've got a recipe, I make it all the time at home, people love it, but hey, it's a bit different going from that to actually selling it. You know, I don't know anything about that. What do I do? How do I do it? You know, like I'm a whatever you are. You know, we've got people that we work with that got backgrounds in IT or finance or HR or, you know, building construction or you know, horticulture and all these things. And you know, these are the amazing people that really, you know, add to the richness of food manufacturing going forward, we think. And if that's you, well, then, you know, you're not likely to have a background in all this, but you want to do it. So you've probably got many questions, you know, how to take this product here, the concept that you've got, the product, the recipe that you've got, you know, until you see it on the shelves, the physical shelves, the virtual shelves, you know, what's in between your product concept until it gets launched onto the shelves. So that's what we're here to take you through today, to go through, you know, give you an idea on the different steps, the different approaches, the concepts, the kind of things that you need to look out for and keep in mind when going through this process. So importantly though, it's really, you know, entrepreneurship and, you know, anything in business is hard. You know, it's, you know, there are challenges, there are pitfalls, there's difficulties, but, you know, what is your why? What, you know, what keeps you going when, you know, there's challenges, and, you know, when you feel like giving up, you know, what gives you that just extra bit of energy to keep going, and why? So, you know, that's one of the first things that we think is really important for you to, you know, really understand. You know, why do you want to get into this? Why do you want to, you know, actually go through this journey? And, you know, it's not something for people that are, I mean, yeah, anyone can do it, but you have to have a really good solid of why, so that you can ensure that you last the distance. And, you know, if you look at that 3 kinds of happiness thing, you know, for solid, you know, real long-lasting happiness and joy, you know, you need to, you know, be aiming for the you know, the top right corner there. You know, it's not just about having something that's, as it says there, the next short-term high and all that, but you want to really be having a mission that you're following. You know, why are you doing this? You know, what's your, you know, what really is your passion, and then your purpose, and then your mission for doing doing what you're doing? You know, who are you ultimately contributing to by doing this? Because ultimately it's the contribution, you know, that really will make us feel, you know, that heart satisfaction of being able to do something for others and to bring something for others. And if you really find that, then that's what will keep you going. So focus on that, yeah, as a real first step. So the next slide is about the types of food product development. So what we've got here is really a introduction to the understanding of the fact that a lot of people new to food manufacturing, new to food science, new to food technology, when they think of food product development, it's all about the new to the world products. But innovation can come in so many different ways, and subtle ways, and ways that you know people don't necessarily see. So if we look at, you know, even relaunching is, you know, a type of food product development, so that, you know, you've got an original product, and, you know, it might be tired, you know, after a period of time, and, you know, you are relaunching it so I'm just moving something around my screen again. Yeah. So, you know, something simple as that can be about food product development. Then another aspect which consumers don't actually see, you know, will be cost reduction. So, you know, there's continuous improvements, right, that people are doing, that manufacturers are doing to enable greater efficiencies, for example. And, you know, because of course, you know, we all want to deliver more for less. So cost reduction should be, you know, a normal part of the R&D process. So if you've come up with a process or a new ingredient or a reformulation which can actually reduce your costs, therefore increase your profit margins, then that's a form of product development as well. Now, repositioning is an interesting one, because, you know, we've got the same product here, right, on the left and on the right, but we've got $7 versus $12. So, you know, the one on the left is, you know, the same, is a hamburger, you know, from your local hamburger joint, and, you know, it comes in a paper bag and so on, right? But if you reposition that, put it on a plate, even, you know, that's all the difference is here. And look at that, you're repositioning it to appeal to a different market. And that means that, you know, there's a different market perception of that product. There's a different image of that brand, even that product, which might be the same product, is representing. But you can have an increase in your price point just because of your you know, repositioning, different target market, different marketing strategy, and so on. Now, there's a couple of Vegemite examples. You know, since we're headquartered in Australia here, but this one here is a, so what are we, 1, 2, 3, we're talking about improvements now. So improvements in this particular case is the 40% less salt Vegemite product, which came out just over seven years ago. So that's an example of a nutritional improvement type of product development concept. So, you know, over time, many things change. You know, things are always changing, of course, and people's or consumers' demands, consumers' interests change. And if you think about, Vegemite is really such a good one to use as an example, because from its launch back in, I think from memory, it's like 1920s or something like that. So, you know, decades and decades and decades ago, the Australian people then, you know, are very different to now. And, you know, in terms of mindset and nutritional interests and lifestyle and all these sort of things. So if you look at how Vegemite has developed over that time, it's really a good indicator of how their market, so by and large, the people of Australia have changed over that time as well. So such as this, where people want lower salt products. So this is an example of how Vegemite has responded to that by bringing out this 40% less salt product in September 2014. Similar to this one, where the requirement or preference for gluten-free products has continued to increase of late, and Vegemite responded to that in 2019 with their gluten-free Vegemite product. So that's an extension, a line extension type of product development. And yeah, there's all these other examples, not only of that, but there's not only in the actual food product, but in packaging for Vegemite and how it's actually used, so how the consumer actually uses that product and things like that, which to increase convenience, to things like that, are examples of product development as well, like the squeezy Vegemite tube things that we have as well. So what I want to point out with this is that product development is not just about new to the world products, and there are so many other facets of subtle innovations that are actually product development. But what we have here are products that we have launched ourselves at a Food Entrepreneurship Academy by working with home food entrepreneurs in the US. So we've got pre-workout pops, which is out of from a food entrepreneur in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got Zyles Health from Miami, Florida, and Salty's out of San Francisco, California. And each of these, started off with again, it's this person, or the case of Zyles, a father and son team who have had a idea for something to fill a gap, change the way that people actually engage and interact and use food. So whether it's convenience or whether it's nutritional benefits or just a better way of doing things. So these are all new to the world products that we've completed. This I guess in the last year, you could say. These three are all in the US as examples of new to the world products. Not only new to the world products, but new to the world food businesses from entrepreneurs that have got a completely different background coming into the market with a concept, an idea that they want to launch, and voila, here we go. This is what we've been able to develop for them based on their what they had in mind. So we've got here the four. If you have a look online, you'll see that there's many different people's approaches to food product development. There's different sorts of steps and stages, phases that people say, but we usually like to work with this 4-stage process. So the development of a strategy at the start for your whole product development project. Then you actually go into designing and developing the product. Then you're looking at the commercialization of it before your launch happens. With the strategy development, now a lot of people that come into food product development have their concept of their product in mind, but it's not uncommon for them not to have done any, maybe some, but definitely not too much strategy development. But this is one of the first things that we go through with our potential clients and anyone that we work with that, this is absolutely critical. If you don't start with the end in mind, if you don't have they might have their ultimate goal in terms of the product, but the goal is more than the product. The goal is actually selling. The goal is the success that you've got. It's the market that you're, want to penetrate into and ultimately have success with. So, your ultimate goal, keep in mind, is more than just your product, because when you think about it, really that is not actually your goal, because your goal is to be a food entrepreneur, and that means actually selling your product. So that means your goal will be, selling your product in this sort of retail, making X amount of money in this sort of time frame. The so-called smart approach to goal setting. Now I can't even seem to remember what the SMART refers to, but that's critical to ensure that you know exactly specifically where you're going. So once you got that in mind, then what we usually like to go through with the people that we work with are doing all this background information, getting all this background information, doing all this background work, and ensuring that you know your competition. So you might not think that you have any competition or direct competition, but whose products are you sort of relating to or basing on? That sort of thing, relating to their types of market or the types of product or the types of convenience, that sort of thing. Because a lot of people say, okay, we've got this competitor, but we think we can do it better in A, B, and C. Okay, so that's who you're starting with as your competitor, and you want to change A, B, and C. Target market. It's so important to ensure that you know who you are actually targeting, and you need to be specific, and you need to be ideally as narrow as possible, because how hard is it to blast, if you don't know, you're just blasting your marketing out into the just out there, and who's going to take notice of it unless you know who your marketing is geared for. So is it, for example, young mothers who are with toddler children, who have part-time work and living in a major metropolitan area, for example, something like that. And then what you really need to do is ensure that you're writing down a paragraph. Say, this is my ideal consumer, Jenny, who's 30 years old. She lives in Sydney. She works part-time. She has children aged 2 and 5, and these are her particular pain points. And this is therefore what my product is meant to solve or benefit Jenny with. That sort of thing, and therefore once you know that, not only will you better be able to develop your product, but then you can actually, you've got your social media marketing or whatever marketing that you're doing, is better targeted in terms of your, Instagram ad spend and things like that. Absolutely critical. All of these are. So raw material suppliers, and that sort of relates to the price point, right? So a lot of people that start off, and we're the same, I'm the same, at the very start, you make your products at home in your domestic kitchen using ingredients that you buy from the local supermarket. But if you're moving up, you're talking about scale up, you're talking about commercial, then we actually recommend, strongly recommend, this is really what you should be doing, getting in touch with wholesale suppliers for your raw materials and actually using those in your initial trials. Because if you use these retail ingredients, then when it comes time to scale up or approach the next phase of the process, then you could run into problems because you're using ingredients, raw materials that are designed for retail, not designed for wholesale commercial production.
Yeah.
And there are differences in that, and you need to know what are the actual chemical and physical specifications of those raw materials, and those are the things that we assess and go through and ensure that it's the right pH or water activity, or the percentage purity and things like that. And if it's not pure, then what is making up the rest of it, and is that going to impact your other ingredients, and is it going to impact your sensory aspects and those sorts of things. So related to that, there's a lot of people nowadays who want to develop these really out there unusual products based on adaptogens or really unusual ingredients. And while those are amazing and have got great potential, our advice can be, depending on which one, but it can be just be wary of those, because of, again, it's related to the price point. And commercially, if you've got some amazing ingredient that only comes out of the deep Amazon rainforest from a fruit that only is in season 1 month of the year, then you need to think about how available is it, how continuity of supply, and the price point is that going to be fluctuating throughout the year and things like that, because then that's you're either going to be charging different prices to your consumers, which you can't do. Otherwise, that means that your profit margin is going to be completely up and down, and that just doesn't work from business perspective. So these are some of the important strategy aspects to really have a think about at the very start of your journey. Then what we've got here is design and development. So this is the so-called fun part that people think about of food product development. It's actually getting into the kitchen, getting your hands dirty, and playing around with food and ingredients and those sorts of things. And this is what, as I said, people think of as food product development. But you should only be really doing this if you've got all those other things down pat. You're actually using your wholesale raw ingredients. You know what your target consumer actually wants. You've got a pricing point down on paper that you're aiming for, and you've actually developed your formulation on paper, or a so-called desktop formulation on a spreadsheet beforehand. Only then should you be moving into the fun stuff of playing around in the kitchen with formulation as a starting point. And formulation is, it really is food industry R&D, and as such, it is a trial and error process. But engaging with somebody like us means that you're really fast tracking that process. So because of the knowledge that we have in food ingredients, how they interact, what consumers want, how those ingredients can contribute to different sensory profiles, how those ingredients can actually respond in commercialization and the scale-up process, and those sorts of things. So those are the types of insights that people like us, I'm not saying us, but anyone that consults and that develops food products has, and in what they do, they can really fast track, so that a lot of that trial and error can be eliminated, and you just really fast track and jump to the advanced stages. So sensory analysis, you've taste, mouthfeel, texture, all those sorts of things are really king, yeah, because if you've got the most healthy 5-star nutritional perfect product available, but if it tastes awful, well, you might get some people that think, well, it tastes bad, it must be good for me, that sort of thing. But it's not gonna have you make a big profit margin, or have you have a lot of customers and those sorts of things. So consumer sensory analysis is absolutely vital with your target market. And it doesn't really matter what you think about the product in the end, right? From a sensory perspective, it doesn't matter what we think about the product, but what do your target consumers, your target market, think about the product? That is, of course, what is going to drive the success of your food product development operation. Your project is going to be driven by the success of your target consumers saying, this is marvelous, this is the best tasting, the best texture, the best everything. And therefore, that's why consumer sensory analysis with your target market is absolutely critical, which means that is why you need to really hone in on your target market at the start. So the other thing to really point out is that these phases, while we're presenting them independently here, they all are interrelated. They're all so dependent on one another, and you start them at an early stage, and then they just go right through the whole project. So food safety and quality is all about, of course, ensuring that your product is safe and you're not going to cause illness or death to anyone. Or if you're not even getting to that stage, it might be ensuring that you're not having to have product recalls and therefore damage your business's reputation, that sort of thing. And ensuring that you've got a long enough shelf life through good manufacturing practice to ensure that it doesn't go off during your, it doesn't spoil during your post-manufacture supply chain as well, and can ensure that it actually gets into the retail that you want. Now, an interesting other side of the coin, if you want to put it that way, with that is the point that you don't really want too long as well, because the consumer perception is that a product with a shelf life that is too long, they get suspicious of it. Something that's got a 2-year shelf life, what's in this? Why is it got such a long shelf life? So you want a shelf life that's long enough for it not to spoil during your process, your whole supply chain until it gets to the consumer, but not so long that it goes against your brand image, so to speak. So that's why at the start it's important to know what is your brand image and company philosophy, and to ensure that all of those things are absolutely known. So when it comes to commercialization, this is where you are, you've dabbled around in the kitchen and you've played around with your ingredients, your wholesale ingredients. Of course, at the start, you've played around with your retail bought ingredients, and you've moved on to the wholesale ones. You've tried out all these things in the kitchen, and you've had your family and friends and other people that fit the target market try them, and they think it's great and you think it's great, and you think, well, okay, now what's the next step? How am I scaling up? How am I taking the next step to actually commercializing this? Well, that's when you will actually move out of your home kitchen, domestic kitchen, into a larger product development kitchen, or pilots, or actually into a manufacturer for pilot scale, pre-production runs, and those sorts of things. And something that we do and that we encourage, or that we require, really, people that we work with to do, unless you're going to manufacture yourself, is to actually work with a manufacturer hand in hand right from the very start of the process, because that way we can ensure that when we're developing the product, designing the product, so the formulation and sensory and those sorts of things, it actually will fit in with your manufacturer. So again, that's what I mean, where, you know, if you think about the commercialization stage, right up, you know, at this stage of your whole process, it could very well be either too late for certain aspects, or you're going to have to go back and change your formulation, change certain things, that sort of aspect, I mean. So as a result, it's so important to think about the commercialization right at the start and start engaging with manufacturers, or looking at commercial kitchens that you're going to be doing your, you know, for example, you might be selling online, you might be doing early stage or small scale manufacturing in a commercial kitchen, and start looking at those and seeing what sort of facilities they've got, and therefore knowing what we've got to work with when we're actually developing your product. Because we don't, and you know, really, this is the way it's meant to be done, right? You know, we're not going to give you something, a formulation that can't be scaled up, because if we did, and then you go and try and scale up, and then your manufacturer will come back to you and say, hey, this doesn't work because of this ingredient, you know, can't flow properly through this processing line, or hey, sorry, but you can't use this because of my you know, like allergen requirements of my manufacturing facility. This is an allergen which can't be used, and you know, it could be critical for your particular product. So, you know, what then? A bit of a headache, really. So the next stage is, or the next, you know, another aspect of commercialization will be the regulatory compliance and labeling and all that sort of thing. So that's, you know, it's so important as well to, you know, ensure that is, you know, you just need to make sure that you're, you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, whether it comes to, you know, FSANs in Australia and New Zealand, or whether it's FDA, or, you know, the relevant cottage food laws in different states of the US, or the FSSAI in India, or, you know, GB standards in China, or whatever. You know, you need to ensure that you're working with someone who has a good knowledge of the regulatory landscape in that particular market, so that at the very start, and again, you know, this is where the commercialization aspect really starts at you know, it's part of your strategy development. You know, which market are you launching into? Which will be your, you know, initial market that you want to launch into, and then for your continuous development, are you planning other markets, other jurisdictions that are covered by other types of local, state, federal laws, for example? Because then that will determine what sort of formulation that you go with, what sort of ingredients that you go with. Because there's no use, say, developing a product for a rather you know, so-called lenient or not as strict regulatory jurisdiction, and then you want to introduce it into a much more strict jurisdiction, right? Then what are you going to do then? You know, you have to reformulate your product. Whereas if you develop it for the more stricter regulations, then you know, then basically you could almost sell it anywhere, sort of thing. So that's just another aspect on how there are so many aspects to think about right from the start, and these things go right through the whole process. So it's not just something that you can start thinking about. When you get to thinking, okay, I've got my recipe now, what do I need to do to commercialize? That is going to be too late, really, to ensure success from, all of these different aspects that I've mentioned. Then we've got the launch. So launch, I've already spoken about the target market, about the audience, consumer trends, your marketing. So that means your launch needs to start right at the thinking about the launch needs to start right at the beginning, in terms of who's your target audience, what are their pain points, what are you bringing to them in terms of solutions to the problem with your product, that sort of thing. Therefore, once you've got all of those things down pat, once you get to this stage where you're actually thinking about the launch and your marketing campaigns, then it will be so much easier. You'll know which social media, which time of the day, what sort of parameters to target, that sort of thing, because you've done all the hard yards at the start with your strategy development. Then retailing, are you looking at physical bricks and mortar stores or online stores, or maybe farmers markets, or selling from cafes, or combination of those. And again, what you can do, what you want to do in that regard, will depend on some of the aspects that you do earlier. So again, there are certain like cottage food laws in certain states of the US, which enable you to only sell in certain outlets, for example. And if you're trying to break into a national grocery store retailing chain, well, how can you actually do that? How will, what's the lead time to trying, and I say try because, so many people want to do that, what do you need to do to enable a greater chance of success in that regard? And one of the aspects will be the sort of shelf life, for example, because, and this takes us on to supply chain management, right? Because if you're going into, if that's your ambition to go into one of these big grocery stores, then you need to have a shelf life that will ensure that you can have your product fresh and not spoiled throughout the process of distribution, in distribution centers, transport and at what temperature, and also sitting on the shelves for a certain length of time, and also sitting in the consumer's pantry or fridge for a certain length of time, all of that sort of thing. So when you start adding up the weeks in all of those aspects, DC, retail, consumer, kitchen, you're starting to get into the months of shelf life. And therefore, what do you actually need to do to ensure, what sort of, as we call, what sort of hurdles do you need to put in your process so that you can maximize the shelf life without it looking too artificial, in terms of like bunging in lots of, artificial preservatives, all that sort of thing. So the last point I've got there is continuous improvement, because if you're serious about food manufacturing, a food manufacturing business, continuous improvement needs to start before you launch your first product. And before you launch a product, you need to at least have in mind what your R&D program will be. And ideally, having actually started that particular R&D program for your next product. Because when you think about it, if you think about a brand or a manufacturer, and how would they look to you if they have one particular product without a change, on the shelf for like 3 years, and know, all their competitors are bringing out new innovations, new flavors, new products, even, new everything. But this particular manufacturer hasn't made any change at all. So, in effect, then, if you're not making change, you're essentially going backwards. So, that's why continuous improvement, continuous innovation, continuous R&D is absolutely essential. So you need to have an R&D plan for 12 months, 24 months, that sort of thing, knowing, be really on top of consumer trends, consumer demands, where consumers are going in terms of their thinking and what they want, and trying to anticipate, working with people that are really good in market analysis and those sorts of aspects to foresee where the market is going, and not only responding but potentially driving market demand. Because if you can drive market demand for something that people didn't even realize that they want, but they do want, or you create a want for it, then that is where you can really be a leader in that particular area, that particular sector, that particular product line. But that requires really intricate consumer knowledge, industry knowledge, and a solid plan and program of continuous improvement and R&D to keep on top of that, which will really maximize the chances of your continued profitability. And ultimately, the more profits you make, the more people you can help, the more people you can contribute to, the more, if that's your why about bringing more products to more people, that sort of thing. Okay, yeah, that's basically the end of it. Now, the last two slides. This is our upcoming events. Like our next free webinar is on protein sources and nutritional protein claims, because there's a lot that people speak about different macronutrients, but yeah, proteins in particular as something that people want to include. And so we're going to cover about animal protein sources, plant protein sources, the differences there in terms of protein quality, amino acids, essential, non-essential sources, those sorts of things. But then also delve a bit into the regulations regarding that. So, if you have a certain level of protein per serving, percentage-wise, that sort of thing, then there are certain claims that you can make on your product. So that's an important element of your marketing if you're want to produce a protein product. Then early December, we've got our Food Entrepreneurship Masterclass 2-day weekend, which basically really elaborates on what we've spoken about in this session here. So while this session is meant to give you a framework to think about, hey, okay, I've got a concept, this is where I want to get to with my launch, we've sort of broken it down into different steps and given you an introduction overview of the types of processes, things you need to think about, some of the pitfalls. But in this masterclass, that's when we really delve much deeper into the nitty-gritty, the details, so that you can actually put together a proper strategy yourself to feel that, okay, now I've got a strategy. I actually know that for my particular product, I should do this, and that. And then this is how I'll be able to get to this particular point, and these are the people that I'll need to hire for my specialist and niche expertise. So you might need to hire a particular a flavorist, or somebody who has a deep understanding of regulations because of the type of ingredient that you want to have, or the type of novel processing that you might want to be looking at. You might hire a food engineer to consult with, or something like that. So that's the types of elements that we'll go through with that. And what I want to leave you with here is a slide which talks about the trends and innovations in the whole food technology space this year in terms of alternative proteins. And there is just that's the first one, but there's just so much that can be done in this space. So, more than just developing food products, there is so much innovation in, look at all these areas, e-commerce and personalized nutrition and 3D printing of food, and robotics and AI in food development, and the sustainability and food waste reduction is so important in different aspects and different sorts of world. If you think about countries like India or Nepal, or some African countries that don't have good temperature control in their pre-manufacture supply chain, for example, and you get so much post-harvest losses. Those are things that require so much real innovation to try and address, which ultimately leads to increasing food security in those places. But then in other countries like the US and Australia and New Zealand, for example, it's more if you want, re-educating the consumer in terms of how they perceive quality, and therefore reducing waste more in at the later ends of the supply chain. So this is just a diagram to give you an idea on there's so many ways to innovate in food and agriculture. So with that, I'll stop sharing and ask if anyone has got anything they want to raise, discuss, comment on. Feel free to say anything at all. Otherwise, Naushad, as our director of our academy, can say something, or Gaurav or Asha, as our student interns, can also pitch in and say anything as well. So, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, Philip, thanks. I think it was really great. Like all the slides were really, really great. And I would just like to say thank you all, for joining us. Sharon, Brenda, Arnold, Bed. We've got Amelda, and Lauren as well. So, and Arsha, Gaurav. So thank you for joining. Philip, I would just from recap what you just said, and I think that's you've covered almost everything, the way we help. Our main goal is to help empower every food entrepreneur in the world, as in to who has a desire or vision of changing the world in terms of, it could be last slide was a big example of it, in terms of food security, in terms of developing new products which can change or could be a game changer in food technological world and those things. So the main 4 steps as in we work in 4 different phases: the strategy development, and the commercialization launch, that's the last 2, and the product design and product development. And each stage has been designed in a way that we help you cover each and every aspects of the the whole product development process, and sort of get a our main goal is as in we want to create a system where it's more successful long term and more sustainable, rather than creating something which could which would be good probably like 1 or 2 years. And that's why I think the commercialization part, where we do help with all the scale up and with in terms of scale up, we talk to manufacturer, we help if and we work with all different kind of startups, some of them are really new, which probably have no idea about the food industry, and if they just want to do more of the minimum viable product, we help them with that as well. So the product design and development part as well is very important in that terms, because I would just focus on one thing where Philip mentioned, use of real raw materials from the supplier. That's very important. That's a key, again, for long-term sustainability, because using your retail what ingredients are okay, at the beginning, if you want to start small or something, but if you're looking for more of a long-term stuff, I think that's very much needed, that you work with this supplier, because that not only gives you a idea of how things work in the industry, but also helps you with a lot of aspects, the shelf life aspects, what other ingredients are present in your let's say for one of the oil powders, it's not only just let's say avocado oil. It's not just avocado oil, it also has a filler in it, like maltodextrin or acacia gum in it. So to look at those things and develop something, I think that's where it could be very it could sort of change the whole scenario. So I think that's very important. That's what we help people with. So I guess that's the main thing. So this 4-step has been specifically designed by us in terms of for a long-term success, rather than living halfway around. So yeah.
Yeah, Sharon, you were going to.
Yeah, I was just asking too, you can see that my chocolate's in the background.
Yes.
But one of the things that I'm just I actually just sent some to Malaysia yesterday. And so one of the things that we hadn't ticked off that I wasn't sure if you touched on is that IP and trademarking that I haven't done. And so now it's like a mad scramble, because it happens within Australia, but also taking these products to other countries, about people copying my products or my design. Do you touch on that as well, or if not, do you know of people that are good people to talk to about that part of the business?
I think Sharon, trademark is very important in terms of when you're selling overseas as well. So you need to trademark your company names and everything, especially it's going into Asia, as well as your design and everything, even the ingredients or whatever, what the recipe, right, if you want. But recipe is not that important, because people look at your ingredient list and can reverse engineer it, right? So, but most important part is you trademark your actually company name and your logo and those sort of things. So when you're selling overseas, nobody can sort of do a counterfeit products. When they do, you can always go back and say that's not your product as well. But the main important part there is, within Asia, as soon as, let's say, you're selling well, they would purchase your trademark, and then that could an issue, right? So if somebody else has your trademark before you, then you can't sell that product with the same name. So that's where it's important. We don't help with that, but we can definitely help you guide that, how to achieve those things. So no, that's what we do understand. I think trademark is very important, because in this world as well, what we're living, we're not just selling into a local Australian market. With the world of digitalization, where where e-commerce marketing and those sort of things, if you're putting on Instagram and those things, you could market it all across the world, right? So that's where the trademark becomes very, very important. We were talking to a couple of people, I think early this year, and I think they were doing chocolate as well. We met them at one of the seminar, and they were saying that was the least expected, that they were selling here, and the main market was in US somehow. So people were ready to pay, the product was $8 or $12 between that, but people were ready to pay $25 for shipping. right? So you never know where your markets lies, right? So as long as you are trying and targeting like through e-commerce on like, Facebook or Instagram ads, you don't know. And I think that's where the trademark becomes very, very important.
Yeah, and I have learned that there's different trademarks for different countries.
Yeah.
As well, so you've got to do it for each country, pretty much, that you're entering.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I'm not too sure on it, but I do know that there is a way you could cover it. There is a worldwide one as well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So we'll need to check, and I think the best way to do is to sort of like get this done through a lawyer as well, because specifically there's a lot of legal things like I think they can of course that's cost is involved, right? But then you are covered on your side, because if you're looking for long-term, of course, like anybody who starts up this new business or anything, they want to do long-term. Nobody has a short-term vision, right? So if you're looking for long-term goal, sustainability, then I think these things are upfront cost, which is definitely going to help you out. And I really, really like that, like, the background you got, the lemon myrtle. I think that's very indigenous ingredient, and almost a lot of, I think, new startups are trying to focus more on Aussie indigenous like ingredients. I think I've spoken to, I'm not sure if you know Australian superfoods. Yeah, I think Hayley, I think she's running the same thing, and I mean she's just, I think she went across the Central Australia and sort of try and found out like every like unique Australian indigenous ingredient, like lemon myrtle was part of it, but wattle seeds and like kakadu plums. So she's doing all the powders and everything as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and so like at the top of mine, I can't see it's like, because I'm Aboriginal, so at the top it says 100% Aboriginal owned business.
Own business.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to really like showcase that, so that's my why.
And
marvelous.
Exactly right. I think that's very much needed. I mean, like you need, I think there's, with the brand success as well, you need to have a brand story, which is very strong. And I think you need to be proud of that story as well, where you're coming from, and people connect to that. If it's a real, I mean, like, it needs to be more authentic, and of course it is authentic, right? So like, if it's more authentic, it connects to the people, and people want to support local as well these days. So I think that along with the branding, those sort of things are definitely very, very important for like brand success.
It was one of the things that I'm onto late, like we're onto it now.
Yeah.
But knowing I wanted to go global, but didn't prepare in time. So I suppose that was my lesson I learned.
Well, like, that's exactly right. Like a lot of things you learn along the way, right? So yeah, it's very important.
Thank you very much. And I guess if you're coming down, you get to try it tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll be there tomorrow. Yeah, so let's catch up tomorrow, and yeah.
Awesome. I have to go, but thank you all so much.
Looking forward to that, Sharon. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. If there's nothing from anything from anyone else, if not, then yeah, we'll just thank you for all giving your time to for this and to understand what we've got to say. And yeah, thanks again, and great having you here. And look forward to connecting with you in one way or another sometime soon. So yeah, anything else, Nashad, Gaurav, or Asha?
I think that's all. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yep, great. Okay, thanks everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.